Man, just when I thought loving yourself was okay, Loki and Disney and Marvel had to make it weird. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm your host, Tommy B, and this is the Bailey Broadcast, where we talk about everything movies, television, and entertainment. Today, we're going to be talking about this past week's latest episode of Loki called The Nexus Event. And this one, again, Marvel is just doing an incredible job with these shows. This was probably the best episode out of all three shows that we've seen so far, just on every level. Last week's episode, like we talked about, was a little more of a filler episode, kind of a slower episode. Didn't really have much story-driven, points to make. But this one, they just hit out of the park. It was so well done. There was great humor, great action, some emotional moments as well. And then they leave you off with the cliffhangers, right? I mean, it was just fantastic. So I don't know really where I want to start, but I think we'll start off by saying, like I said in the beginning, Marvel does a great job at portraying these two characters, these two different versions of Loki, and making what you think kind of weird but normal at the same time. You have these two people stuck on Lamentis, world crashing down, and you think there's got to be some way they get out of this. You just don't know what it's going to be. At the same time, the TVA is trying to find them. They don't know where they quite are yet. But then all of a sudden, Loki and Sylvie have this moment where they connect, and it looks like they are somewhat falling in love with each other, which is, like I said, weird considering they are basically the same person. So, to love oneself, they just take it to another level. But their love was really what caused an energy spike at the TVA, which was bringing it to the red line and creating a Nexus event, and was really what saved them ultimately from being destroyed on Lamentis. So I saw a lot of people online saying, well, if the TVA was gonna just kill them anyways, why not just leave them on Lamentis to get destroyed? And I think the main thing that comes to my mind is if they did that and the Nexus event got to the red line, that would more than likely create a multiversal event, right? And the whole point of the TVA is to prevent any multiverse from being created. So to me, it made sense. I don't think it would have been obviously a really easy way out of the story. Kind of probably would have not done the show justice to do it that way. But ultimately, I loved how they were saved by the TVA. When they got back, to the TVA, they were separated once again. You could really see that time on Lamentis and their bond that was being formed really made an impact on Loki. And I think Sylvie to a certain degree as well. In the very beginning of this episode, when we see young Sylvie on Asgard as a young child, she has a lot of good in her, and then she gets taken by the TVA for no real reason initially in our minds. You feel for her, and you don't know why they felt like she was someone who needed to be arrested, other than being a variant of Loki, I guess. I mean, the only other thing that I could think of is, well, they saw, when she's playing with her toys and she's pretending to be the Valkyrie and slaying the dragon, maybe they realized the Nexus event that she was creating was actually being a good person. Loki is always seen as this, god of mischief and, always on the wrong side, a villain, right? And she was actually maybe showing a more side of a heroic, point of view. And that's what the TVA was afraid of a Nexus event, being created by. It's kind of a weird theory, or, not a solid one, but that's really the only thing I can, understand at this point. Hopefully they'll kind of, dive deeper into it next week. We'll just have to wait and see. But, they get back to the TVA, and Owen Wilson, Mobius, shows up once again, showing, I think that was what I really missed from last week's episode, was Owen Wilson. I mean, the guy has just nailed his character every week that we've seen him, and to have him back with Tom Hiddleston in the interrogation room, and they're just back and forth banter, Mobius calling Loki an asshole, basically. All that was really entertaining. And then how Mobius was trying to get underneath Loki's skin to see what their plans were. Were they, in cahoots, from the very beginning, or what was their ultimate, goal. He's trying to tell her, well, she's pruned already, she's had her time. And obviously we know that he's lying, but he wanted to see if that was going to have any effect on Loki. And he basically calls Loki out and says, you like her. And it's such a narcissistic thing for Loki to be falling in love with another version of himself. I just thought it was super weird but entertaining, but sweet at the same time, because we've never seen Loki feel like that towards anyone, on a romantic level before. So their chemistry was great. He doesn't get much out of Loki, obviously. And one of the greatest lines, I think, out of this whole episode was when Loki basically calls out, Mobius on telling lies. And, Mobius says, oh, you're upset that I, lied about Sylvie? And Loki's like, no, that I can respect. The lie that I'm talking about is the ones that you tell yourselves. And that was like, boom, because he tried to tell Mobius, you are all variants. This is not real. This is not what you think it is. These timekeepers are lying to you. And for a second, you think Mobius is believing him, and just, I think, for some reason, couldn't get himself to be all the way there yet. And so he sends Loki through, this red door for once, that is a prison. And we see him go to an Asgard kind of courtyard, it looks like. And all of a sudden we get a familiar face pop up, which we haven't seen in years, Jamie Alexander's Lady Sif. And just a great time loop of her kicking his ass for cutting her hair. It was very entertaining, and it was great to see. And I think we're going to be seeing more of her, hopefully, in Thor Love and Thunder. She was the only one that survived in Thor Ragnarok. We're assuming obviously the Warriors 3 all died from Hela, so hopefully we'll get an explanation where she's been this whole time. But just to get her into this show was great. And for him to use that moment in time as a way to look at himself and feel like he is wrong or was wrong for doing that to Lady Sif, and not a good person, and basically accept everything that she's telling him. You will be alone, especially if you keep up with this mischief that you're known for. You if you want to be alone, great, you're on the right path. But if you don't, you need to change your ways. And it was a really nice message, I think, for Loki to kind of accept. Once we get past that scene, though, we find Sylvie in another room, and she's waiting to be talked to, not by Mobius, but more than likely at this time the timekeepers. Mobius goes and talks to Renslayer, who in the beginning of the episode we see was a hunter A23 before she was a judge. The young Sylvie escapes, and so kind of weird that the one case that she lost, because Sylvie escaped, however many years later, she's promoted a judge. That's usually not, how things work. If you fail, you're not going to get a promotion. So, there's something behind that that we'll get to later on. Her moving on up in the ranks just kind of seems a little fishy. I definitely think she's having some help. Mobius and her are talking in Renslayer's office, and Mobius is trying to find out if he could talk to C20, the one who was taken hostage by Sylvie in episode 2, and see what she was talking about. Is it real? And now we know that what she was referring to was her memories. Everything that she thought was just a dream was her actual memories on Earth with a life. And everyone who her and B15 as well, who was enchanted by Sylvie, they really got a glimpse into a life that they actually had. And Renslayer is now trying to keep this under wraps, which is making Renslayer look very bad. And Mobius is trying to find out, well, why can't I talk to her? What's going on? And Renslayer tells him that she's dead, that the experience that happened with her was so stressful that it killed her, which we find out later is a lie when Mobius switches his tempad with Renslayer's, and he sees the video of Renslayer talking to C20, and she's mad because this is all, she's like, this is all a joke, none of this is real. I had a life, and Renslayer is trying to cover it up. And so at that point, Mobius now believes what Loki is saying, and he goes talk to Loki once again, and it was just like, look, I need to trust you. Are we friends? And Loki kind of gives him this grin, like, yeah, we're friends. And you feel like this bond is really kind of come together in a nice way. And as soon as they get back into that interrogation room, Renslayer is there with some hunters with the wrong tempad, and one of the most shocking scenes and moments so far in the show. Mobius is like, what I dream, or a time and place that I dream of, is a life that was actually mine, riding a jet ski. And for someone who, she considered Mobius a friend, and which was uncommon, she had no problem pruning him. And it was like one of those moments where, you son of a bitch, like, I can't believe you fucking did that, you whore. I mean, it was very, very ruthless. And the pain in Loki's eyes when that happened, you just feel, I mean, it was such an emotional moment, and you don't know if Mobius is now dead or what's going on. We don't know what happens when people get pruned yet, right? So it was like, holy crap, this is uncool. Owen Wilson's done such a great job in this role. You don't want him to leave the show so soon. I mean, there's only 2 episodes left, but you were hoping for more. And at that point, Renslayer has both Sylvie and Loki, and it's time to go see the Timekeepers. And once we're there, these Timekeepers are really Chuck E. Cheese, Rocky and Bullwinkle looking type of characters. I mean, it kind of fit with the, the nostalgic, appeal and look of everything that the TVA is about. But ultimately, you could tell these guys who are projected really high above with the cloudy mist below them, it just looked very Wizard of Oz like, and we get to a point where you think, okay, here we go, something's going to happen to Sylvie and Loki. The Timekeepers, want to, basically kill them or ask them, if they have any last words before they do. And here comes B-15, who earlier in the episode shows Sylvie, takes Sylvie back to the one apocalyptic event in episode 2. And, B-15's like, I need you, to tell me what you show me, is that real? And she's like, those are just, a glimpse of your memories. And B-15's like, show me, I mean, it was a very powerful, moment. And she's, after seeing the rest of her, life, she's like, I looked happy. And it was like, damn, right? And so now we have this kind of, almost plot twist where B-15 and Sylvie are working together. And here comes B-15 into the Timekeepers, loft, and ends up helping Loki and Sylvie, fight the hunters and take down everybody. And it was a really amazing scene. I mean, visually, once again, this show and this episode just knock it out of the park. And then, all of a sudden, Sylvie takes her sword, throws it, cuts the head off of the middle Timekeeper, and we find out that they're androids. Pure Wizard of Oz moment. Okay, so these guys are just pawns, right? They're just there for show. You think, okay, this is a great setup for the last 2 episodes. What's going to happen? Loki decides he wants to be honest with Sylvie and tell, her how he feels, which was, just in retrospect is so funny because he's basically telling himself that he loves himself. And, but right before he does that, Renslayer gets Loki pruned just almost identical to how Loki killed Coulson in Avengers, right? From behind, you see the prune stick kind of come, through his chest, and it's another like holy shit moment. You can't kill off the main character of the show, like and that at the moment you almost have to believe that, okay, when they prune these people, they don't die, right? Because you can't kill off the main character. So that happens. The last thing that you see is Loki's face, before it gets, completely dissolved out. Very reminiscent to how Vision, you know, kind of disappeared at the end of WandaVision, and very, very, you know, emotional scene. And Sylvie's fucking pissed, and she just, you know, takes, you know, Renslayer out pretty easily, you know, and right before you think, you know, she's gonna, you know, kill Renslayer, and in my mind I'm like, fucking do it, kill that bitch. She's like, no, you're gonna tell me everything, and that's the end of the episode. So we think, you know, and it was like, oh, like, no, you can't end the episode like this. It was so good. It was so well written, and so well choreographed in the fight scenes, and just every scene was vital to the success of this episode. And then when we get the mid-credit scene, we see Loki wake up, and he's in some time period where it's New York that looks like either, you know, the New York from the first Avengers movie, where either he was successful in his plan and he destroyed New York, or the nuke that the government was going to use to destroy the aliens actually went off and Iron Man wasn't able to stop it, and everything was destroyed, right? But more importantly, he's greeted by other versions of Loki. We see Richard A. Grant as classic Loki. We see young Loki. I forget the other Loki version, and then the alligator Loki. And they're like, if you want to live, you got to come with us. And so it's a great, great setup for episode 5. And I just can't wait to see, you know, what happens next. This was, like I said, probably my favorite episode out of all 3 shows so far. Everything that you wanted the first 2 shows to be every episode. You know, I mean, I think you could see the progression with Marvel and Disney Plus in these shows, right? I mean, each episode or each show really has gotten better and better. I mean, I would still say WandaVision I liked more than Falcon and Winter Soldier. But, you know, now that they're in their 3rd show, where they've come is huge. So I loved it. Can't wait to see what happens next. And, you know, they did a great job really, you know, still having us as the audience ask questions and then answer some along the way. So with that said, let's go ahead and get lost in imagination. So like I said, I think the message of this episode was pretty clear. It's all about loving yourself. You know, as weird as they made it, I think it's a great message to use in everyday life. You can't really be happy unless you love yourself first. You can't be happy alone, and you can't definitely be happy in a relationship unless you love yourself first. And it's a great, you know, message that I don't think we've really seen yet. And from here on, I can't wait to see how they, you know, expand on this kind of moral of the story. If something will end up eventually happening with Sylvie and Loki, or will it just kind of come to an end? We'll have to see. But, you know, as far as the real world goes, love yourself, and then you can love others. You know, I think your true happiness and growth as a person has to start with yourself. That is our message for this week. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please leave your comments down below. Tell me what was your favorite part of this episode. And go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done it already. I really appreciate it. We can keep these videos going. And we will see you next time on The Bailey Broadcast. Take care.